Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, Patreon family? It's another Game of Thrones podcast, trending now edition. Yes, air horns. This episode, The Last of the Starks, episode 4, season 8. We're now 2 episodes left. Last season. I'm a little conflicted about all of it. I'll be honest. At the same time, I'm still entertained. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still really entertained by the production of the show, the general storytelling of it. But there's some major criticisms out there, not only of this episode, but of this last season, the last couple seasons, honestly. And it feels like this show is taking a turn from the public perception side of it. Maybe not from an actual, like, material quality necessarily, but just the perception of it is dipping. And I feel like we're back in Lost 2004 all over again, you know? Like, I don't want to go down that road. But digressing, I still thought this was a fine episode. I was entertained by it. A lot of things happened. A lot of things didn't happen as pretty much a setup episode to get all the pieces in the right order, right place for the next big battle against Cersei. We had the post-Winterfell battle scene. There's just a lot that happened, but again, a lot that didn't happen because it was a setup episode. But of course, I'm joined as usual on these podcasts by the illustrious, the one and only Mr. Fugatti. Fu, how you doing today, man?
Good, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't know. This last season, it's felt
Rushed.
very rushed, which I was afraid of when they announced 6 episodes. I was very much afraid, and then everyone was like, "But they're like full length, like an hour and a half, almost movie length episodes." It's like, okay, maybe. But at this point, I think everyone's fear that it was going to be a compressed and rushed season to finish out the story feels true. You know what I mean? So, I think I had criticisms that I didn't want to be overly critical. It's been a great series.
Yes.
But if you look at like a Breaking Bad, where Breaking Bad maybe had some lulls, it was consistently very good the whole way through.
On top of that, it was a show that I would argue the ending was perfect. Like they somehow they figured out a way to wrap it up in the most perfect way that was still fan servicey. Because in any sort of serialized form of media, you're gonna be fan servicey. You have to. Yep. They were able to do it and be artistic and keep a coherent plot together. I think Breaking Bad is maybe an exception to the norm, though, because, look, they were 5 seasons. You know, it's a shorter show. They had a thread point throughout the entire plot for that show. Game of Thrones was an unwritten, finished IP.
Yeah.
You know, and I listened to completely different, but it is connected to this. It was a Star Wars podcast, because they announced the whole slate of the Star Wars movies coming out in the next few years. And obviously the Benioff and Weiss series, right? Because the creators of this show, Game of Thrones, which we're talking about, are the next creators for the next trilogy of Star Wars movies. And they, the podcast was talking about how the idea of concept mining, or plot mining from source material. And how if you look at, let's say, Kevin Feige of the MCU, and how they were able to plot mine the source material from the comic books perfectly. They didn't disregard it. They didn't treat it as some redheaded stepchild like the Star Wars sort of franchise did to their source material. Their, the legends now, their universe, their canon, which they now threw away. And similar to like Game of Thrones in a sense, to connect it back to the show in this podcast, Benioff and Weiss, you can see the clear split when they were mining all of the material, all the source material, and when that material ran out. And they had to create things on their own.
Yeah.
And not to say that one is a better creative style than the other, because look at Kevin Feige. You can argue that he's the best creative mind in all of cinema right now, right? but he is collecting all of his source material from a IP that's been around for decades, which is smart. There's good stories there. There's good art style there, art directions there. Take it from that. Benioff and Weiss ran out of that in Game of Thrones. Star Wars ignored it completely, and those are I think some similarities and comparisons or contrasts we can have with these different nerd franchises in a way, and we can see why Game of Thrones is having this issue right now, because the creators were, I think, perfectly suited to be the Kevin Feige's, in a sense, of the Game of Thrones universe, to just data mine all of that from the source material and to create a TV show around it. They did that perfectly up until season 5-ish, right? Where they started jumping off from the source material. I don't know how you can course correct from that in 2 episodes.
You really can't. I mean, I feel like we're all going to be disappointed in the end, because what it seems to me is they've really gone, and this will go into when we talk the episode, but they've really gone to this place where like now Dany is just power hungry and going like mad queenish, and they haven't set up. I just don't feel like they've set that up good enough for us to believe it. It just seems like
forced.
Very bad character development. It's like, well, her dad went crazy, so now she's going to go crazy. And it's like, okay, but up until this point, she's been nothing but a just leader. So now she's, I mean, I don't.
I think it's, look, at some point it's hard for me to jump in and like try to create connections that the writers didn't create, in a sense, right? Because like that's what I end up doing is I start creating connections to plot threads that aren't really there,
just to explain it,
or to create themes. Themes of an episode, themes of the story, themes of a character development that aren't really there, but that maybe I can infer on from very circumstantial evidence. I think if I am the creator and I've created this story and I'm here to defend it, right? My argument would be simple: is that the Dany switch to, quote, Mad Queen isn't to show that she is like her father. It's, I think, and you can even argue, we're not even showing, if I'm speaking as Benioff and Weiss, I'm speaking as Game of Thrones creators, we're not even showing that she's an evil queen necessarily. What we're showing is just the split in mentality from her and Jon, from her camp in the north, and how that division is what's going to create this final conflict, because I've gone more and more into this sort of the last 2 episodes thinking, look, we might lose Dany and Jon. We might lose, let's say, Jon, Dany, and Cersei. I think that's a high distinct possibility now, where Cersei most likely dies in the next episode, and we get Jon and Dany in some fashion dueling it out at the end, and Jon and Dany dying because of it. It just seems so. It seems like they're heading towards a tragic, in a sense, Shakespearean ending. I don't know if they pulled it off. That's a separate argument, but that's what they're trying, But we've sort of waxed on enough about, I would say, us hating on the show. Let's talk about the episode itself, and then we can maybe circle back to the themes of the episode, themes of the story, our issues with it, because it will come up. Episode, brief summary. We obviously have the brief sort of memorial scene with all the burning of all of the dead. Thought that was an excellent scene. We see Ghost back with half a ear off. Glad to see Ghost back in there, even though they treated him awful towards the end of the episode.
Great speech by Jon.
Great speech by Jon.
That was fantastic.
And again, overall thread throughout this episode was clearly Jon is supposed to be Ned. Like, the parallels of those two are just eerily similar throughout this entire season. From the first episode of this season where Jon and Dany came to Winterfell to now, it is almost one-for-one shots from Ned and that sort of scenario. But digress from that, we have the great, I would say, celebration scene at in the dining room. Dany giving Gendry Dragonstone. We have, I would say, one of the better interactions of the episode till it got worse was the Jamie, Brienne, Tyrion, and Podrick drinking game. Love that.
Yeah, it was fun.
I would say the first little bit, 20 minutes or so, was actually really good. I
Yeah.
love the hall scene. I think them.
It was Storm's End, right? Not Dragon's.
Oh, sorry, it was
Storm's
Storm's End.
End.
It was Storm's End.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Storm's End. I think them sort of. I'm trying to remember what movie it made me remember or think of, but the scene where John is getting applauded by Tormund for being the guy to get on a dragon, right? Like, who would have the balls to do that? And you have this sort of scene where you pan over to Dany and she's has this 1,000 yard stare, and the music shifts and the sound sort of shifts around her. I thought that was perfect. Again, I think this episode, the first 20 minutes or so, was great. I think Gendry going to Arya and getting totally just shut down was kind of sad. Like I'm of two minds of that scene. I like maybe criticism of Gendry, the actor's acting of it. That didn't feel real at all. But Arya shutting him down, that felt real. So that sort of, like, I would say, made the scene okay. And then we have a Brienne and Jamie sex scene that doesn't really get shown. I like that they were nice about it and, artistic about it in a sense. But I will say this. After all these years of build-up, I didn't do it for me. Like, I don't know. Maybe because we got the scene later of Jamie leaving Brienne to go back to Cersei, but this episode was weird. It was disjointed in a lot of ways. There's a lot of good things about this episode. There's a lot of bad things about this episode. There's a lot of things that felt off. And the Bran and Jamie final love scene, in a sense, was an off scene to me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It felt weird. But overall, your thoughts on sort of the first 20, 30 minutes of the episode?
I think it started off, like you said, solid.
Yeah.
Like, started off and I felt like, oh, this is going to be a really good episode. And then I think where they lost it is like Jamie has, for all of what Jamie is, he never acted that way toward Brienne. Like, he never acted like, oh, I'm the shitty Lannister guy who pushed a kid out of a window. And it's like why 2 episodes before the finale is he now going, no, Brienne, I'm not worthy of you, after seasons of like, like,
Yeah.
it just felt weird. Like, and
It
was
felt
like
forced.
an episode.
It felt like a forced scene.
Yes, it was like an episode where they wanted every story arc was kind of like, and we can talk about this more, but like Jon Snow is no longer, he is now, Aegon, right? And he's just turning away from everything that is the North, basically. And a lot of, imagery to that is him leaving stuff behind.
We have a different reading on that, but we can get into that later. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of was my read on it. And then the thing with Jamie is like, okay, now he's like, I've got to pay for all my sins. And it's like, he's like, it's not a bad story arc. It's just, I don't feel like they're doing enough to make us believe it all. It's not like he came to Winterfell and he's like, I'm here to die for man. I'm here to pay for my sins. I'm here to atone for all these things. It's just this. It's so rushed. We don't have any scenes that tie everything together where you're like, oh, that's where they're going with this.
Yes.
It's just like, where the fuck are they going with all this?
The thing with like Jamie in this episode is that they try to give him 2 separate character arcs in a single episode. They try to give him the happy ending and also the tragic ending in a sense, or at least the setup to the tragic ending in a very forced, rushed one episode. Like that's that, again, disjointed feel to it. You're on this point where you even have scenes saying like Jamie's going to stay in Winterfell. He's going to stay with Brienne. You even have like Sansa looking at Brienne like, oh really? He's going to stay here? And like, Brienne give her the side of like, yeah, And like there was those moments, right? And then you have all of a sudden Braun coming in, another sort of character I would say, maybe acting out of character in the episode.
Yeah.
I would say just giving zero shits about Jaime or Tyrion. Almost breaking Tyrion's nose, threatening to kill him, and then he just says, "Hey, I'm gonna be gone for the rest of the show." I'll be honest, I don't think we're gonna get Braun again. I think that's it. That was the
Yeah.
write off for Braun, in my opinion. I think we get like Tyrion and Jaime both dying, Cersei dying, and Braun gets nothing, and we don't get a final scene with Braun ever. I think that's how it ended, to be honest. And Braun saying, "Hey, if you guys give me double," and which I think was High Garden, I think is what they offered him.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be back and I won't kill you because I assume you guys are gonna win because your lady has 2 dragons. And come on, I know math. I know how this is gonna work, and obviously foreshadowing later on. I just again your thoughts about the Braun scene in particular because that scene I think it was important. It was an important scene, but it wasn't as well. Cause I don't think we're gonna see Braun again at all.
I think what was more important to me is that, and
Or was that the scene that somehow made Jaime want to go back to King's Landing?
no. So the Battle of Winterfell, we talked about this, and a lot of people kind of said the writers don't have the balls they used to have.
Yes.
Right. And the scene with Braun is the same thing to me, because if it had been season 1 when they were cutting Ned Stark's head off and you're like, no, this can't happen, someone will save him, and then no, fuck it, he's done, gone. If it had been that kind of writing and that just that little bit of care, like we don't care if you love Tyrion, he's dying right here. Right? That would have been a moment where you're like, holy, that would have been a real moment to pull you into the episode and be like, fuck, man, like if that had happened, or like Jaime had died there and then Tyrion like bargains with him to save his own life, that scene could have meant more. But because like it's almost like they're scared to kill any of these people right now. I don't know what's going on.
Or you go the exact opposite and Braun shows up and go, "Hey, here's the crossbow. You know, your bitch sister wants you dead. I'm here now. This is my way to get out of that.
Let's fucking go kill her.
I need to get out of this city." So I said yes to it. You guys are gonna pay me double, but now I'm here now. So what are we gonna do? Where's this dragon queen? You know, like if they went halfway again, disjointed. They try to do both things in one scene.
Yep.
They try to appease both sides of the fan base in one scene, and it made no sense to me.
Yep. It would have made more sense. And also it made no sense because it's like they go from the celebration to off by themselves, and then Braun shows up.
Well, we even have the Jon and Dany scene where they go off to themselves after the party, and Jon kind of says, "No, like we're not gonna have sex right now. You're my aunt." He doesn't really say that, but that's how I implied it. But it was just the tonal shifts of this episode were a lot, and they were frequent. I don't know if that was a good thing. Again, because like I said, like I was entertained by this episode ultimately, but there's nitpicks here. Like if you can imagine George R. Martin and how he frames the story in the last book, I don't think he frames it in certain ways like this. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Next, though, I believe we have the team up, or not the team up, the meeting where they say, okay, Team A with Jon, they go down the King's Road, and then Team B would go by ship, and we go to I think they go to Dragonstone first, and then we're gonna go to King's Landing. And then we have Jon's farewell to everyone. I would say first was Sansa, Arya, and Bran, where we have the big reveal to his family that, hey, he's not one of them. But guess what? That reveal off screen, guys. You know what that means? The writers didn't know how to write it. That is writing 101 when it comes to like fiction writing. If you are writing a scene and you don't know how to end it, make it off screen. That's what you do. Make it dramatic. Then we have John saying bye to Tormund. Tormund's going to leave to the north of the Free Folk. It looks like Tormund's getting his happy ending, and we're not going to see Tormund again.
Which is odd. Why has he been a part of all of this
They
to then be like, I'm not going to go help you with the more important battle, which is getting this crazy fucking person off of the throne. And then, maybe they give him, the wall to watch, or something,
or all of everything beyond the wall is his. You can have that. Again, weird storyline. And then the goodbye to Ghost, which was a non-goodbye. He tells Tormund to take Ghost, and they don't even like White Fang it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't even do that.
Yeah.
He just looks at him, give him like the hey bro head nod, and just it's done. Scene over. Ghost, who is one of the most beloved fan characters in the entire show, who we have yelled at the creators to give more respect to because we love that character, because we love dogs, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And for them to not only undercut him in every way as a character, and plus his connection to John, and for that send-off, it was just really frustrating. I hope somehow we get it where like Tormund and everyone comes back for that final battle. I know it's not happening because they wrote it where it's impossible. If they do, I'll be upset actually because it won't line up with the storytelling.
Yeah.
But I want it. I want John and Ghost and Tormund to go down together in the last battle. Like, how would you not want that? And on top of that, if you're gonna have Ghost do that, if you're gonna have Tormund leave, make it a real goodbye to Ghost. Come on, you can't tell me as the creators of that show that we can't do the CGI anymore. You can't give me that bullshit excuse. You had John ride dragons. Okay, ride a fucking dragon. You can't pet a dog.
Yeah.
Really? I come on. Like,
and then there were so many other plot holes. They pull half of the army off of the board, and it's like, oh, half of the Dothraki are gone. It's like, no, all the fucking Dothraki are gone. We saw that.
We saw
like, how did half of them live?
Yeah, way too many lived after that battle.
Hey, oh, now and it's such shitty writing in the sense that it's like, oh, well, now we have the same amount of army that she has.
I'm about to say, oh, quickly,
fucking, that's nice.
Quickly, Danny's army alone was 60,000.
Yeah.
We know that. I forget how much John had under his command, but it
was supposed to be around 100,000.
Yes.
When everything came together.
So they now have 20 to 50,000 people still. That's still a pretty good army. Now, they did lose another chunk of it later on in the episode, of course. Let's just jump to that. Fuck it. We can.
Yeah.
Danny, in a very, picturesque scene, flying on a dragon in the sky. You have Grey Worm, holding Missandei's hand. It's all beautiful. And then we have Komplunk. We have the fucking harpoon of death. 5 harpoons of death hit Rhaegar and just completely fuck him up. That one to the neck was amazing. And, and that's why I say, you had the budget for that. You couldn't give me fucking John petting a dog. Fuck off, all of you. And you have, I don't know how much destruction was done. Again, they do a very bad job of like setting the stage of like a scene to let you know the scope of it. They do a really bad job of that. I don't know how many ships were there. I don't know how many Unsullied were there. How many people died? How many people were captured? No idea. It looked like
5 ships. It's like,
yes,
oh, wait,
and on top,
went 5 fucking ships.
On top of that, it looked like what? 12 guys showed up on the beach?
Yeah.
Like at most 12 guys.
Yeah.
It was weird. And then obviously we have the Dragon Dawn. I thought that was great though. Like I thought them doing that individually was awesome. It was sudden. I was not expecting it. It set the episode for the last 20 minutes or so to be high suspense. And the last 20 minutes of the episode were actually, I would say, pretty good. They nailed the ending of this episode more so than anything, in my opinion, even though it was a little bit controversial. Thoughts on them killing Rhaegar? Like, do you think that was a good move to kill off a dragon before this last battle? Now, we only have Danny with the dragon, also John losing his foreshadowing, in my opinion. But we're gonna get to those that take in a second.
Well, I think there's a couple things here that like I didn't really notice, but I listened to some other people talk about. Is she loses Rhaegar, and then Rhaegal, and then she like dive bombs at the ships. Like she's kind of just lost her mind at this point, and everyone's like, well, it's honestly like the dragon that pulls her out, like not her. Like the dragon just decides like, no, fuck you, I'm not dying like that, and he dips. I need to go back and watch it to see if that's what happened, but I kind of do remember her being surprised that he swoops out and gets away. But in my mind, that was kind of like foreshadowing, maybe even the dragon realizing, like, yo, she's lost her mind. Like, I don't know.
I think people are adding way too much character to these dragons.
I don't know that it's all started when the dragon looked at Jon when they went on that little thing, and now everyone thinks there's some kind of like some connection between Drogon and
yeah, I'm like, no, like, come on,
and the dragon. So
you tell me,
like that's
you tell me the creators that literally had the source material of Arya being mentally connected to a pack of direwolves who she could control with their mind, basically. Tell me that they didn't want to use that, but they're gonna somehow think that Drogon is mentally connected to Jon, and they're gonna, revolt against Dany's will. No, like, come on, like, the creators don't like CGI characters. The creators obviously hate fantasy. Let's be honest. The scenes that they did the greatest in, which we could probably talk about, was the Varys and Tyrion scenes. God, that was. I didn't know how much I needed those scenes in this season, last 2 seasons, honestly. Because that brought me back to like season 3, season 4, which were like honestly the best seasons of the show. Where Varys and Tyrion were literally the masterminds in King's Landing, trying to control everything, and all the political movings and sort of concepts that were getting discussed by those two guys, those two characters, I thought were just the best dialogue of the show. And I would say the best dialogue of this episode was Varys and Tyrion, and multiple scenes in this episode talking about Dany and Jon, and whether Jon and Dany, or who should rule, because we didn't say it, we're off on this. Tyrion found out through Sansa that, because Sansa can't keep any secrets to herself, not surprising, that Jon is actually Aegon Targaryen. So now, and even Varys says, how many people know? And Tyrion goes, 8. Well, he goes, it's not a secret anymore, it's information.
Yeah. But Sansa did that on purpose. Like, she's had her.
I don't know.
Her whole thing has been to
I don't think
bring Dany down.
I don't think that was on purpose. There was too much emotion in that scene. Even though there was no word spoken, Sophie Turner did a fantastic job emoting in that scene. And even like Emilia Clarke, I think she did a fantastic job actually acting in this episode.
The scene in the bedroom when she was kind of like begging him not to tell anyone. Like, I thought that was a really
or obviously
good moment.
The scene obviously at the very end with who dies. I mean, she just did she emoted, acting with your face and your eyes, and more so than actually your words. She did a lot more in this episode than before. I think Sophie Turner, in that, again, a scene that we got cut and was off screen of Sansa telling Tyrion about Jon, Sansa was like crying. We don't know how to take that scene because it was off screen. But digressing back, Tyrion, Varys, sort of debating who should rule. And Varys seems like he's pretty clearly in the camp of, no, Dany's the wrong fit. Like, we made the wrong choice there, guys. Like, Jon is clearly the better choice here. And Tyrion goes, I think she's going to do okay. Like, I believe in her. I trust in her. And again, I thought this was probably the best couple scenes of the episode, probably the season thus far. And I think because of that, you can take a lot of different interpretations about the foreshadowing of that conversation. Fu, where did you take it in terms of foreshadowing that conversation? Or did you even take it as foreshadowing necessarily? Or do you think it was more just a plain conversation between Varys and Tyrion to sort of maybe having like a piece of exposition for the audience, for us to have that cathartic experience of somebody else talking about Danny. Because no one else except really Sansa is talking about how bad Danny is, except for all the fans out there, right? Now we have that scene of our two favorite characters talking about whether Jon or Danny should rule. Was it just a fan servicey scene, or was there real foreshadowing between those two?
I think the only foreshadowing is like them deciding where they're going to align themselves when it's all over. Like if for some reason there's a split and there's a decision to make, Varys is saying, I'm going to pick Jon. I don't think she's the one. Tyrion, I think his whole thing is he wants to believe in what he thinks she is. And that's why he pushes so hard in every scene to be like, Cersei, don't push her to the brink. Don't do this because all these things are pushing her further and further to being this person that I know she's not, but maybe she'll become if she has to, type thing, right?
Tyrion seems extremely self-aware of what's happening, but completely ignorant of how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like even the Cersei scene. Let's get to that. We have in that battle with Euron killing the dragon, he was able to capture Missandei, and we have Tyrion pleading with Dany to go and negotiate one last time to not burn down King's Landing. Let's not do that. And they go up to the wall, and I will say this would never happen in real life. You would never have literally every major leader of an army going up with a small force to a wall with them having ballistas on top of it.
And your only other dragon just sitting out in range to get wrecked by
on the ground too.
10 ballistas. Standing on the ground. What the fuck, writers?
That wouldn't happen. But then again, every military battle in this entire show is not anywhere close to how military actually functions in especially medieval times. And then we have Tyrion making the last plea to Cersei. And I think it's very clear that Tyrion's speaking to a fucking wall right now, that it's not both literally and metaphorically speaking to a wall. Nothing's gonna happen here. And Cersei goes to Missandei, and there's a brief pause, and she goes, I think her only lines in the entire episode, goes, any last words? And at that point, oh yeah, confirmation, she's not gonna make it. And Missandei says, Dracarys, Mountain comes, beheads her. And Tyrion looks at Dany like, fuck. Dany storms off in complete rage. Grey Worm looks like he's about to just fall apart. Really good scene. I think fundamentally, except for the weird, how everyone's right next to the wall with two squads of soldiers against the entire army and ballistas. Other than that, the scene, the acting, was fantastic in it. Even the writing, I would say, was actually pretty good in this. Maybe just the directing of it was off, that. The set piecing of it was weird. And this caused a little bit of rift, because I think Missandei is one of those characters where she is kind of beloved by a lot of fans. She's the only female of color on this entire show. Plus, I think she's a pretty good actress. On top of that, similar to the writing of the show, I think if they killed off Missandei, it would be, I think, overall kind of fine. But Grey Worm should have died already. You know what I mean? The fact that Grey Worm's still alive, or the fact that Tyrion, who was drunk on the boat, does not get hit by a ballista at all, is able to survive in the ocean, and Missandei gets captured. There's just certain. How? How does that happen? Walk me through that, Benioff and Weiss. All the points to get to that, even the off-screen points. I want you to explain to me how that can happen, because it just doesn't make sense to me. I think a lot of the fans didn't like that either. I do think, though, this scene was perfect in terms of what they were trying to accomplish. I just think overall, it's a good scene, a great scene in a kind of episode in a season, and arguably 2 seasons of controversial storytelling. Not necessarily due to content matter, but just because of the quality of the storytelling. Phil, your thoughts on the ending of this episode? Missandei dying, Danny storming off, are we getting the Mad Queen? All that fun sort of stuff we have to discuss.
But here's something again for me that I'm like, you have Varys, you have Tyrion, you have Grey Worm, you have like not that Missandei is not important. She is very important to Danny. But like,
You can argue.
if you're Euron, wouldn't you have captured one of these other people when they were in the water or when they were trying to get away? And wouldn't it have been more powerful or meaningful if like Varys was up there getting his head cut off, or Tyrion's up there getting his head cut off? It's like those are not that she's not an essential character. I love that character. But again, to me, it just speaks to the fear they have of these major characters dying right now. I don't understand what it is, because in my mind, we were losing all these characters already. Like a lot of these characters would be gone. And I think in Martin's book, they will be. I don't think they will be alive after Winterfell. I don't think it'll.
Oh, like the crypt scene for Martin's going to be a bloodbath.
Exactly. And it's like, so it's almost like they've said, guess what? We know that based on the first 5 seasons, you guys thought, oh, we won't kill this person off, but we do. So now we're going to subvert that whole logic in 6, 7, and 8, because when you think people are going to die, we're going to let them live. It's like, well, fuck, no, we just want some bravery in the fucking storytelling, just give us what we're asking. Like, I want to leave the show and be like, God, I can't believe that happened. But every scene, it's like you're shooting all the plot holes where you're like, okay, so you want to tell me she was flying on her dragons?
She couldn't see the boats.
Worse, they didn't even think to scout their entrance into the fucking castle, into the bay. Like Tyrion, no one thought, you know what, they might ambush us. I'm sure they already know we won this battle. I'm sure they know we're coming for them.
Or even after all that, hey, Danny, just fly around the ships and burn them from the back because the ballistas are pointed forward and they can't turn around.
Yeah. And there was none of that. It's like, oh no, the dragon goes down. Danny dives at him straight on, then goes out of the shot. Now we're on the beach. Missandei is captured. No one else is captured. Like, yeah, you would have thought maybe they had like a line of her people like captured.
If they had showed that, like that would be enough.
Yeah.
But they isolated one character as Missandei. And look, just play devil's advocate here, just for the sake of it, right? Missandei is, I would argue, now that Jorah's dead, the one character that can speak to Danny through all the bullshit, through all the stress, through all the anger. Missandei and Danny were BFFs, right? Like they could speak to each other. Missandei could walk her off that ledge. I think not maybe in the same way as Jorah, because Missandei was a little more like, nah, let's fuck some people up, But
and proved it at the end. She hates these people. She hates.
Well, I don't blame her. She's about to die.
Kingdoms, like, right?
Yeah, if she's about to die, I would have said the same thing, right? Like, let's be honest. I think if she was alive over there, she would probably tell Danny, let's not burn all these innocent people, these women and children. She would be one of those telling Danny to calm down. She's not there anymore. Now we have the path for Danny to be the Mad Queen and no one to rein her in, because
and she co-signs it.
Yeah.
When she's like Dracarys, it's like, okay, that means dragon fire. She's saying, fuck these people up.
There's no way any of them heard that. Let's be honest. She said like Dracarys, and she's on top of a 40, 50 foot high wall, and Danny's at least 100 feet away from them. There's no way she heard that. Just saying. I know it's a nitpick, but I have an issue with it.
Unless Danny had her AirPods in. I mean, we had a Starbucks cup, so maybe we had.
That just shows you they just don't care anymore. Let's just be honest. And I mean, look, I have really no other points about this last scene, but I do want to talk more about Jon and the foreshadowing of this overall episode. Any last thoughts about individual scenes in the episode, anything like that? No. All right.
No.
We discussed this briefly off air in our group chat. You have the mindset that this is setting up Jon to be the king. That this entire episode is foreshadowing him to be the king. I think you have a good. I think you have a good argument. Right? Basically, that was your argument, right? The basic argument is that.
For sure. Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, myself, I'm thinking that this entire episode and this entire season has been foreshadowing his death. That he's going to die tragically. I'm going to sort of give the floor to you, Fu, because I rant a lot. I want you to sort of make the case. Why do you think this episode in particular, and then overall this season, the show, why does it point to Jon being the king and not him dying?
So I thought of the entire episode, and even if you look back on some other things, there's him distancing himself, even in the battle, from like Tormund and some of the other people that have always fought for him, right? As like Jon giving up the Snow name, like he's no longer a Northman, like he is now 100%. I know who I am. I'm Aegon Targaryen. I'm trying to learn how to deal with me being Aegon Targaryen.
Even though there's no actual like vocalization of that, right? Like
exactly,
okay,
but
right.
just the way that they're they're doing a shit job writing this, right?
Of course,
they're doing a shit. There's no reason this couldn't have been a 10 episode season.
Same with last season, honestly.
Right? It's literally like if you're penny pinching at this point when the fucking whole world watches this goddamn show, like come on guys, give the 10 episodes and do it right for the fans.
We are talking about
stuck through this.
We are talking about HBO here, and they did cancel their entire boxing program.
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. So my take was that Tormund going back north and Jon saying goodbye. Jon kind of leaving the north and what appears to be Sansa's hands. He does not want to be like, what do they always call the guy? Like, what was Ned?
The Warden of the North.
Warden of the North. He doesn't want to be that. You can tell he doesn't want that. He says he doesn't want to be king, but he obviously isn't attached to the Stark name. I mean, look, his aunt is Lyanna Stark, and he says, "No, I'm not a Stark. I've never been a Stark." Your fucking mom's a Stark. You're a Stark. Like, chill out. Like, But he's like going like super hardcore at this idea that he's a Targaryen. I mean, to the point even that, knowing this information now, he can't be with Dany. And then just so much of what he's done, like telling Ghost to go to the north because it's a direwolf, and direwolves are related to the Starks in the story. Now I can't have a direwolf because I'm not a Stark. I'm a Targaryen. So I didn't take it as like foreshadowing that he's going to die. I took it as foreshadowing that he is fully embracing not being Jon Snow now, which I could be completely off about. But that's how I read it.
I read it differently. I think that this entire episode has been foreshadowing that Jon is going to make the tragic sacrifice that like Ned did. He could, again, because like it's a different interpretation of the same like scenes that you see and the same sort of framing that you see. I just see it in sort of a different, more of a tragic framing, more of a less than of a heroic framing. Like even the Jon Dany scene, right? Like I thought that was a clear sign of a conflict. Like they are setting up the conflict between these two. The goodbye to Ghost, the goodbye to Tormund, the goodbye to Sam. We even talk about that. Holy shit!
Oh yeah, Sam
might not even be in the show anymore.
Who's apparently going to go to Riverrun or what? Where is he from? He's from
Riverrun, isn't he? No.
Is it Riverrun?
No, not Riverrun. Fuck. Maybe Riverrun.
Wherever the fuck he's from.
Who cares? But anyways, they're just
going to go back there, I guess. Like him and Gilly?
And little Sam and another kid they're gonna name John. Another sign he is definitely dying. They're naming a kid after him. He is dead.
No, because
Um,
you see, then he turns and says, "No, I hope you have a girl. Don't name it John, because I'm not John. I can't tell you I'm not John right now, but
well, no,
I'm not
but
John."
they know that.
Oh yeah,
Gilly and Sam
but
both know that. You know that.
I
Come
don't
on.
know if Gilly knows that. Well, I'm sure. I mean, that's his girl.
I'm
But
pretty sure there was a scene last season where like Gilly was like, "Come on, I know." I'm pretty sure there was. I could be wrong about that, but I mean, come on.
yeah,
Let's be honest here. If they
yeah,
didn't, that's bad. That's bad storytelling because that's not how it works in the real life. I'm just
no,
telling
it
you, no.
doesn't work that way. Yeah,
um, but we have John. Yes, you're right. Saying goodbye to his name in a sense, his namesake. Even though he was a Snow his whole life, he was a Stark in a sense, right? He grew up as a Stark. Even though he grew up as Jon Snow, he grew up with the Starks.
yeah,
I think this was the same tragic farewell that Ned had when he went down to King's Landing, where he had everyone say to him, "The men don't do well in my family that go down to King's Landing." And guess what? Sansa, Arya, and everyone says that same thing. Starks don't do well down there. Starks don't do well in the South. You know, my father, my uncle, my brother, they all died down there. You know, like the South is not good for us Starks. I just think that was the thread point to this all was look, Starks don't do well in the South. We have John marching an army down south. That never works out for us.
the only difference is he just told them he's not a Stark,
But he is.
but he's not.
But he is.
I mean, he is in terms of Lyanna, but I just think this episode was an episode that, and they did it with a lot of characters. This is one thing I wanted to say, like earlier. Um,
Not just earlier.
yeah, like way at the beginning of this was they took this as like a show to kind of like a shedding of the skin type of writing show for all like so many characters, right? But they just did a really shitty job of it. Like they did a really shitty job of writing Danny's kind of new mindset and John's new mindset and all of these other things that were going on. They did a really bad job of you know like even like really campy stuff, like when the Hound's like, only one thing will make me happy, and then everyone's kind of like, oh, what'll make you happy? It's like, I mean, killing his fucking brother. So they've been talking about the whole fucking show. Like he wants to kill his brother, like, or dying. I guess maybe I heard someone else make that like death would make him happy. But like if he wanted to die, he could have already died. He's alive because he wants to kill his brother. Like, let's just not get lazy here. Like that's the next two episodes have to be really good to make up for what
Yes.
minus episode 2 has been a lackluster season.
Yeah, episode 2 was really good.
Yeah.
That was a decent episode. I mean, so you think John wins the Game of Thrones?
Or he sacrifices it. Look, John does believe in the people first.
Mm-hmm.
So if for some reason he does still believe she's the better choice, I'm with you. He could sacrifice himself to turn her from going bad. Like you need to, like
how would he write that?
it's like if they're in a moment where he's like, you've got to be the person that you said you're going to be, the breaker of chains, the person who brings peace to the realms, the person who brings, and then he dies and she's like, okay, like I'm going to be all these things,
I could see
right?
how you do that. I could see technically how you could do that. I am very curious about this next episode. Miguel Sapochnik, I mean, whatever you want to say about the editing, the storytelling of the last episode, because that's really what was at fault, was the editing of it, was how much they course corrected the darkness of it. The actual, like, who was able to die and who wasn't able to die, that's the writing, that's the editing of the episode, not necessarily the directing of it. Miguel Sapochnik is a fantastic director. His idea for setting a scene, setting a shot, framing a shot is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And also for, like, knowing how to set a mood, set a tone to a scene. Like he is just one of a kind when it comes to that for television. I don't know about cinema because
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever done anything big budget in terms of movies, but in TV, I can't think of anyone else that does it like he does. Um, I had this brief thought. This is where we're gonna end the show on. It's this last sort of thought. How much do you think like Jon Snow? And this was a last minute thought I had. Not last minute. It was last night. Off of a very good edible. I was thinking like maybe Jon
Perfect.
Snow is their version, and it's not a 1-to-1, so don't think I'm saying it's a 1-to-1, but it's their version of A Man with No Name. That theme. That guy that's going to walk through and save everyone and kind of walk away. Now, sort of like the old Western idea, he usually dies or he gets his sunset. He walks on the sunset. He goes on his way to the next town. I view them, or maybe George R. R. Martin, as viewing Jon as the man with no name. He may be the one that is going through that is the focus, but he is not, in a sense, the protagonist, necessarily. He may be the hero of the story, but he's not necessarily the protagonist, if that makes sense.
Arya may be the hero of the story.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being realistic. Like,
she already is. She's Azor Ahai.
Yeah. So let's look at it like this. Tormund did say something like, you're better up north. Like, the north is for you, right?
And he kind of said, yeah, I wish.
What if Dany dies and he says, I don't want the fucking throne, and he just goes and lives with the free folk, and that's the way his story ends?
I would love that. Yeah. Honestly. I would love that. If he just said, hey, Gendry, somebody take the reins. I don't want it anymore. And
that might have been why they set up the Baratheon thing. Who knows?
Because he is third in line.
There's really no way that made any sense except for her trying to politically align with someone, but that's the weakest fucking political alignment ever. Like, yo, Gendry, I want you on my side. You
get a castle.
Yeah, you get a castle. It's like, I mean, if I'm going to align with someone, I'd be like, oh, Bronn came and threatened you guys. He's fucking badass in battle. Yeah, like I'll give him High Gardens. Let's get him on our side. Like, why Gendry? Gendry's not, but the only point to that would be to legitimize him as a Baratheon in some way.
Yes.
That would be it. I mean, so that the show writers could be going a route that like neither Jon or Dany sit on the throne.
I get the closer I get towards the end of this show, the more I think that's likely, and that might be a good way to save it. And maybe they don't both die, but neither one actually takes the throne. I like your way of it. Like Dany dies tragically. Jon with Star. I think he lost the two loves of his life, Ygritte and now Dany.
Yeah.
On top of that, he's probably seen all of his friends, all of his loved ones die in very tragic ways. Ghost is in the north. Tormund's in the north. He loves it there. I could see it. And then you have sort of the Man with No Name ending, which I low-key have always loved as somebody that grew up with Westerns. So
yeah,
I just think, again, really super high thought I had last night. It could mean nothing, but I was like, ooh, there's a way you could do this here where it's poetic and it makes sense. And I know that George R. R. Martin's never really talked about like Westerns or anything like that as inspirations, but The Man with No Name, I think, is a theme that goes probably beyond Western movies, even though it became probably iconic through Western movies through Clint Eastwood. But like old Japanese films, old samurai films back in the day, those were Man with No Name storylines, themes. That's what they were, like, in a sense. So I can't wait for it still. Like, even though we've been shitting on this entire show, I would say, for the whole hour, I can't wait to see the next episode. Can't wait to see how they wrap it up. It's been a decade of this show, and I've loved a lot of it. There's been a lot more good than bad.
Let me throw this at you, okay? So, Sansa and Tyrion in the crypts, they talk about how it won't work out. Why? Because your queen won't let it happen. Dany dies. Jon goes back to the free folk. Sansa becomes the queen, and Tyrion and her are married.
Only problem is that they're not next in line.
But it doesn't have to be. It's kind of like the end of a lot of lines.
Well, if,
You know?
if Gendry is now made a lord, and he has Storm's End, which is a very big castle, it's a notable place, notable fiefdom. He is third in line like that.
But Sansa would have more political power and more
Savvy.
like they're worried about, right, that Dany, if it comes out that Jon is a Targaryen and the rightful, right, that it would cause issues because they would lose the North.
That's because
So,
the
like,
North is so big, like it's so valuable.
Understood, yeah.
Yeah.
But Sansa wouldn't lose the North. She wouldn't lose Harrenhal, right?
Yeah.
She
Or
would-
the Vale. Or the Vale.
Or the Vale.
Yeah.
So at that point, she's been positioning herself as the power broker in every season since her break from the
Look,
Boltons.
I think we could easily see Sansa at the top. She's clearly the smartest character on the entire show. She still
Yeah.
makes kind of some bonehead decisions. I think telling Tyrion was a bonehead decision, I'll be honest. But I understand why, and that maybe it is a smart move overall. But I could definitely see that. But anyways, Fu, that's it for
Yep.
today. Any last thoughts, final thoughts?
Oh, just remember, George R.R. Martin tweeted in like season 3 or right after 5 ended when Jon Snow died that if you think this story has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention or whatever. So, we're probably in for a real mind fuck at the end of
That's
this
why
thing.
I don't think Jon, he doesn't take the throne. Either
Yeah.
by death or by saying, no, I don't want it. I just...
Yep.
Because he's the hero. And think about it. They already did that with the Night King.
Yep.
They already subverted that. And I'll be honest, I think George R. R. Martin's going to do that too. I think Jon's not going to be the one to kill the Night King in the books either. I think it's Arya.
Yeah.
I think that is something that he has planned. There's a reason that George R. R. Martin literally put her on a plot line to be an assassin.
Yeah.
Is to do this in a sense, right? But the ending, I don't know. They could change that up. I think they could. And it could be interesting to see what they do. Anyways, you know where to find me, Matt Hunter MCR, all platforms. Fu.
Fugatti MCR, all platforms. Thanks for listening, guys.
Have a great night. Peace.